Yo, what is up, guys, and welcome to episode 50 of Excuse the Miamians. And today is a pretty sad one. Well, at least for me. I mean, I was super sad last night. But the Buffalo Bills end up beating the Miami Dolphins 21-14. And unfortunately, Miami cannot win the AFC East. And everybody thought, man, Miami has this real shot this season to get it. But unfortunately, I've been saying it since the beginning of my podcast. If Miami cannot beat the Buffalo Bills, then they cannot win the AFC East. And unfortunately, that's just how it is. You have to beat the people who have been destroying you every single year. At least once, you got to beat them at least once a year. And that just couldn't happen. And unfortunately, Miami did have a good first half of football. It was one of the ones that I was like, wow, I was really impressed with how Miami's defense came out, despite all the injuries that Miami has had. But just once the second half happened, Miami could not run the ball. Miami could not throw the ball. Miami's defense started to get a little bit tired, but they were still hanging in there. They could have won you the game. And I can't, this game was up on the offense, most likely. I mean, defense, spectacular. Even without an Xavier Howard, even without your entire D-line pretty much getting injured, you guys held on and you guys did what you were supposed to do. Unfortunately, offensively, Miami just shut down, and that's what it is. But we're going to be going over a little bit of the stats. Josh Allen had one hell of a game. Obviously, those two interceptions that he had in the first quarter didn't really help their team, but I would give some credit to Miami's defense as well. But sometimes Josh Allen makes these mistakes where it's like, man, I know that you're super good. I know that you could probably be one of the elite quarterbacks. Well, you probably are an elite quarterback, but sometimes these mistakes happen. And he went 30 for 38, 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and he just had himself a game, even with his legs. I mean, if you watch the game at the end of the fourth quarter, I think it was 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 13, and he ended up running all 13 yards. I'm like, man, can the Dolphins not stop him ever? I mean, it's bound to happen every single time. But Tua goes 17 for 27, 173 with 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, rushing yards. Josh Allen literally leading the way, 15 carries, 67 yards. Devon Achane ended up playing since Raheem Mostert was injured, 10 carries, 56 yards, 1 touchdown, and receiving. Shakir with 6 receptions, 105 yards, and then for the Dolphins, Tyreek Hill had 7 catches for 82 yards and 1 touchdown. But if we're going to go to the scoring summary, Devon Achane, 25-yard run in the second quarter. Miami goes up 7-0. Then on the next play, you see Trent Sherfield, a 6-yard pass from Josh Allen. They tie the game 7-7. Tyreek Hill ends up getting a little short pass from Tua all the way on the right side of the field, and the Dolphins go up 14-7 right before the half. You see the Bills, they were rolling. They were about to score. And I don't know why Miami ended up kicking back, and they played a bunch of players back on one straight possession. They got a little short pass to Stephon Diggs, and then he runs out. It was literally, I think it was like 10 seconds left, 9 seconds left. And then all of a sudden the Bills, Josh Allen throws, and Jerome Baker literally stops him right at the line. Time expires. It was giving me some like nostalgia to last year when the Dolphins won, but obviously, it didn't happen. Miami goes into the half winning 14-7. And then the fourth quarter, honestly, the Bills were on a roll. And this is the problem. They ended up getting a punt return for a touchdown, 96 yards. On that play, one of the Dolphins players did get injured, and it was revealed that he tore a tendon, so he's not going to be playing for the rest of the season. But once that happened, once that punt return happened, I was like, man, this is literally not Miami's game. Then Miami ends up punting for like a 4th straight time, and then after you start punting for too long and you don't get any yards up on the board, the Bills are going to bite you. And all of a sudden, you see a Dawson Knox pass from Josh Allen. They go 21-14. Miami goes down the field, and they couldn't do anything. They punted off again. And then once that ended up happening, Josh Allen, he starts doing the brotherly shove. And the Dolphins were able to actually stop him on one. And it was literally 4th and inches. They tried it. They got stopped. And then Miami has to go down the field. Tua ends up throwing an interception, but it is what it is, man. I mean, Dolphins just couldn't do enough to win this game. And I got to give it to everybody on the defense. If there's one player that deserved to win the game, it was Christian Wilkins. He had one hell of a game. He was able to get a fumble strip sack, which is crazy. He ended up just sacking Josh Allen, gets the ball straight from his hands, throws himself on the floor, gets it. And it's just Miami's team. I wish that we would have gotten more of the game for Durham Smythe, because I've already said it all season. He didn't get 1 touchdown this entire year. And I mean, none of the Miami Dolphins tight ends did get one. We've been relying too much on the wide receivers, and I get it. That's just the way that McDaniel plays it. But, you have to try to get Durham Smythe in there. I mean, we were doing that against the Jets and against the other teams that we were playing, late in the season, especially against the Cowboys. And then we just forgot about them completely in this game. Even though he got 30 yards, there's plays where the tight end, instead of blocking, he can try to, do a fake and then go out and get a ball. But, Tyreek didn't have the best game either. I will say, if we're going to start from everything, first half of the game probably had to be some of the best, Mike McDaniel coaching that we've ever seen him in the Miami Dolphins, as him being coach. Because the first half, we were only allowed 7 points, and the offense was honestly rolling. Now, I'm going to say it just like I've said it the last episode. We had Devon Achane running the ball perfectly in the first half of the game. Second half comes around, you don't even run the ball anymore. I think he only ran it 3 or 4 times. That is it. You just had him Tua throwing. The reason why the throw was working so perfectly in the first half of the game was because we kept running the ball and they weren't sure what was coming. Either we were going to throw it or we were going to run it. They did not know what was coming, and that's why Tua was able to throw the ball. But once you start being predictable and you start just throwing the ball every single time, they're going to just throw another safety back there and they're going to pick you off eventually. So in the first half, I got to say, amazing coaching. We did what we had to do. Vic Fangio, his scheme started working a little bit. But one of the things I will say, Eli Apple did get an interception, but I don't know. I still don't know why Ramsey was not covering Diggs the entire time. When Diggs got off the plane from Buffalo in Miami, you needed to have Jalen Ramsey on him the entire time. I'm like, man, you just can't allow something like that. You get me? You can't allow this guy, because I was watching a couple times where he would make a left, and then it was like Kader Kohu right in the middle. I'm like, man, I hope he does not just get him, because you already remember CeeDee Lamb against the Cowboys. He ended up catching that ball. Kader Kohu just couldn't keep up with him. It was a touchdown, and I was hoping that that did not happen with Diggs. But Miami they really did fumble. I mean, you could have potentially been hosting the Bills at an AFC East. It would have been nice to win the AFC East, really. But it is what it is. Second half of the game happens, and then you already see Josh Allen starting to cook the Dolphins. I mean, the entire second half was just them. I think Miami had like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 straight possessions where they just could not move the ball. And there was a couple plays where you see Tua ends up throwing to Tyreek. And I'm not going to say anything bad about Tyreek. I think he's had just an excellent season. But there was a couple plays that he could have had a catch, and he just completely drops it. That literally kills the momentum. I think it was like a 3rd and 7. He ends up throwing a perfect ball to Tyreek right in the chest, and he just drops it. I'm like, man, you need those plays. That could have potentially kept us rolling. I mean, we could have gotten a field goal. We could have gotten something in that drive. But then, another play where he ends up throwing it to Berrios, and Berrios ends up catching it, but instead of him going back, he goes a little front. We couldn't get the first down, and then we had to punt away. And right when the game first started, Tua ended up throwing a long ball to Tyreek. It was underthrown. He gets picked off, but honestly, it was like a punt ball. I think that everybody that was on Twitter at the time was like, you know what, screw it. He threw a pick. He tried to throw it super far, and it was, it got picked off, but they were like in the 10-yard line. So maybe it could have been even better than a punt, because sometimes the punt goes all the way to the back. You start at the 25, but then, the last play of the game, Tyreek is not there. Tyreek goes on the right side. Tua, he goes to the bench because I think he got, he re-aggravated his injury, which is really, really bad going into the next playoff game. Tua hikes it. He didn't have too much pressure, ends up throwing it to the left, and unfortunately, maybe the player was supposed to be there. I don't know if Claypool was supposed to be there at the right time. I've seen people on Twitter saying he should have been there. I've seen people on Twitter saying that was a bad throw. Whatever the case may be, he still got a pick. You cannot be allowing something like that. If you don't have that much pressure, you got to throw it away. I understand that every single player on the field was pretty much like, nobody could get space. I don't know what it is about this Dolphins team. If it's not Tyreek or Waddle, nobody gets that space. So, it sort of sucks for Miami because they just could not get that spacing. And once you saw that Tua ended up throwing it, I saw everybody on that field. Everybody was literally stuck with glue with their defender, and Claypool was being double coverage, and he threw a pick. But if I'm going to put some blame on the team, I'm probably going to put McDaniel just for the coaching. I thought he had to run the ball more. And this is not saying, I saw an article out there saying that maybe he's in the hot seat for next year. And I'm thinking to myself, man, how are you going to say that? I feel like so many people for the Dolphins are just literally hating on, McDaniel on this Dolphins team and Tua. And, you're not thinking about all those seasons that we didn't even go to the playoffs. You know that the Bills are one of those great contenders this entire time that they've had Josh Allen. I think ever since his first season that they ended up going to the playoffs, they've just been on a roll. And it's going to be tough to beat a Buffalo Bills team. I've always said it. They're a great, dominant team. Unless you could beat them, maybe you're not ready for the playoffs yet. Dolphins have gone to the playoffs 2 years in a row. I have literally never in my life seen a Dolphins team go back-to-back to the playoffs twice. I'm 30 almost. You know what that is? The Dolphins, I don't know why I get it. Fans are aggravated that the Dolphins could not win 2 games. Could not go to the, win a playoff game. It wasn't even a playoff game, but I get it. You wanted to host one. But, man, I don't know how you guys can just say, screw this team. McDaniel's not the player, not the coach. Tua's not the quarterback. We haven't seen a Dolphins season this fun in a long time, especially even last season. Everybody thought Tua was going to get injured. He's been having a great season, did not get injured. And I'm actually surprised with all the injuries that we've gotten that Tua has not gotten one. So hopefully that does not happen in the next game. But Miami does need to try to find a way to win these games. Also, I went on Twitter. People were saying we got to trade Tua. At this point, who are you going to want to trade for Tua? I don't even think there's a quarterback out there. I've saw people throwing out Justin Fields, and I'm thinking to myself, man, are you kidding me? Like, look how bad the Bears are right now. At least we're in the playoffs. At least we're trying to contend for, I guess, a Super Bowl. Even if the Dolphins are really injured, it's something that, anybody can dream of, right? Because like they always say, any given Sunday, a football team can win. Sure. But let's just hope that Miami actually does go out there and Miami can try to win the game against Kansas. But the next game is in Kansas City. It's going to be on Saturday on Peacock, which sort of sucks because if you're not from Miami, the game is actually on Channel 6 here in Miami. But if you're not from Miami, you're going to have to pay Peacock, which is funny. But hopefully Miami can win next game. I ended up right before I ended up making this podcast, I don't even know if you guys know. Van Ginkel also got injured. But Jerome Baker and Van Ginkel will not be playing next game against the Kansas City Chiefs. And on top of that, you know who's out? Baker. He's going to be out for the rest of the season. He just had wrist surgery. And I'm thinking to myself, when the hell did he need surgery, So Miami's literally going in there depleted. I'm guessing they're going to probably pick up Jean-Pierre-Paul. I always forget his name. But they're going to have to pick him up. They're going to have to pick up somebody to help from this D-line because, you have Ingram out there and you have Ogba. But Ingram sometimes can't go out and play defense out in the back. And you saw a couple plays where he ended up getting cooked. So I'm thinking, man, Dolphins are really going to go into this Kansas City game depleted. But funny note, I do have to say something funny. The last time that there was a playoff victory in the Miami Dolphins stadium, which is now obviously the Hard Rock, was when the Miami Marlins, at the time Florida Marlins, ended up winning in the World Series Game 5. That's a crazy stat. Do you know what that is? It's been literally 2003, and somebody posted it up out there. And then what's even funny is that everybody from both of those rosters has been retired. That is insane. So it's been so many years since the Dolphins have won a playoff game. Let's just hope that Miami can show up and actually do something and maybe go to the playoffs and just win the first round, because Kansas hasn't been that good this year, but they are playing at home. Supposedly it's going to be like -2, -10. And I got to give, Christian Wilkins guts because he has guts. He's like, what's the weather? I'm not wearing long sleeves. Like, he's just going to go in there straight. It's just crazy. But hopefully Miami, this isn't the end of the road for them. I still feel pretty good about this team. Offensively, you're going to be getting back Jalen Waddle. You're going to be getting back Raheem Mostert. So hopefully the offense will work a little bit better. Hopefully Tyreek is not that banged up. But it is like one of those things that the NFL script was working because, you're going to have Tyreek going back to Arrowhead Stadium. And then on top of that, you're going to be having, I think it was the Rams. Jeff Goff is going to be going up against the Rams, which is pretty crazy. Just a bunch of narratives. I just hope that the Dolphins get a victory. That's all I want, man. I just want to see one. I don't think I would consider if the Dolphins lose next game, not a failure of a season, but it is a huge letdown. It just sucks that Miami Dolphins injuries happened at the wrong time. And I did want to read the list of injuries that we've had, but I'm not trying to blame the loss on injuries because the Dolphins could have beat the Bills. They could have beat the Bills this Sunday, but it's just the long list of names that are out there. It's just pretty wild. But anyway, I hope you guys did enjoy this episode. And if you guys are a Bills fan and you're watching this, I mean, congratulations to you. You guys ended up going to the AFC. You know, you guys got the AFC East championship, I guess. You guys are now in second place and hosting. I'm not sure who it is. I'm not sure if it's Pittsburgh or it's. I think it is Pittsburgh. But anyway. Hopefully you guys, everybody here in this channel enjoyed it. If you guys can, go on Spotify, follow Excuse the Miamians. And if you guys are on Spotify, please follow Excuse the Miamians on YouTube. Please, also, if you are brand new, subscribe because it does help us out. And as always, go Dolphins, boys. Go Dolphins.